How could I have ever predicted that the young man who kindly helped me set up a coffee machine would end up stepping into my home, leading me to notice something so private and personal left out in the open? And who could have foreseen that such a seemingly ordinary encounter would lead to everything in my life shifting in ways I'd never imagined? At the time, I was living alone, and I had resigned myself to that solitude. But on the day I went to purchase a coffee maker, thanks to the unexpected generosity of the guy from the store, my days of solitude would soon come to an end. Little did I know that meeting an eager and inexperienced young man would bring about a dramatic and unexpected twist to my life story. Allow me to recount everything right from the very beginning. But before we go any further, if this is your first time here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on stories like mine. I'm 60 years old, divorced for 15 years, and accustomed to living on my own. My life had developed its own routines and habits over the years, including private moments and personal belongings that I never thought twice about. These were things meant solely for me, and I often used them to cope with the emptiness that sometimes accompanied my solitude. Because of this, I became so accustomed to their presence that I hardly noticed them anymore, even when they were lying in plain sight, like on the couch in my living room. Perhaps it was an unconscious habit, or some unspoken way of confronting my loneliness, but either way, I didn't think much of it. That morning, everything felt completely ordinary. My only intention was to buy a coffee maker and get on with my routine day. However, that ordinary morning became the beginning of an extraordinary journey the moment the young man, Aaron, entered my life. Aaron, a lively and warm-hearted 23-year-old, was a breath of fresh air when he offered to help me with the coffee maker. As I opened the door to let him inside, I thought nothing of it at first. He was just someone lending a hand, carrying the boxed coffee machine into my home. But as he stepped inside, his energy and bright demeanor instantly changed the atmosphere of the house. His curious gaze roamed around the space, soaking in every detail. It was then that his eyes landed on something I had completely forgotten about: my personal items, including some intimate clothing and a few of my toys, which were still lying on the couch where I had absent-mindedly left them. To me, these things had become an unremarkable part of my environment, blending into the background of my everyday life. But to Aaron, they clearly stood out. As Aaron walked further into the living room, a small, knowing smile spread across his face. He glanced at me, then at the items, and with a playful curiosity in his voice, he remarked, "So, you live alone, huh?" His observation caught me off guard. My cheeks flushed a deep red as embarrassment flooded through me. It happened so suddenly that I didn't know how to respond. After all, Aaron was only here to help set up a coffee maker, nothing more. This was my private space, and I had no intention of letting anyone glimpse into the more personal, vulnerable aspects of my life. My loneliness was mine alone, something I kept tightly guarded, and I certainly didn't want to project it onto anyone else. "Aaron," I stammered, my voice quivering slightly, "please, let's just pretend you didn't see any of this." I desperately tried to salvage the moment, feeling as if the life I had carefully built to shield myself had suddenly been exposed. My words hung awkwardly in the air, but Aaron simply smiled, his expression calm and understanding. "Whatever you say," he replied, his tone gentle yet tinged with humor. "But, it's not exactly easy to overlook things like these. They kind of demand attention, just like you do." His words took me aback, leaving me feeling even more flustered. My face grew hotter as I tried to process what he had just said. I turned my head away slightly, feeling too exposed to meet his gaze directly. "Aaron," I muttered, barely above a whisper, unsure of what else to say. With his characteristic warmth and sincerity, Aaron continued speaking, his words effortlessly calm, yet strikingly meaningful. "You know," he began, his eyes glinting with an unusual light, "it's perfectly natural to have things like these when you're living alone." His gaze softened, but the emphasis in his voice grew just a touch more pronounced as he added, "We all have our needs, but sometimes this kind of thing just doesn't fill the void, does it?" His words lingered in the air, almost as if they carried a double meaning. It felt like he was reaching out to me, not just with his words, but with his presence, a subtle yet powerful connection forming between us. When our eyes met, there was an undeniable spark, a quiet yet palpable pull that drew us closer. The intensity in Aaron's gaze was warm, not overbearing, but it felt as though he could see something in me that I hadn't shared with anyone else. Every moment spent in his company seemed to dissolve the boundaries I'd carefully built around myself. And then, as if sensing my thoughts, Aaron spoke again. "I noticed it the first time you came to get the coffee maker," he admitted, his voice carrying a strange mixture of shyness and confidence. "There was something about you, something that made me feel a way I've never felt before." His words caught me off guard, leaving me momentarily speechless. What could I possibly say in response? My emotions were in turmoil, but resisting the magnetic pull between us seemed more impossible with each passing second. "You made me feel the same," I finally replied, my voice soft, yet tinged with vulnerability. I offered him a small, tentative smile. "Otherwise, I would have never accepted your offer to help and invited you into my home." My words were honest, but deep down, I knew they barely scratched the surface of the truth. Aaron had found a way into my guarded heart, his easy charm and unassuming demeanor effortlessly disarming me. For a brief moment, silence hung between us, heavy but not uncomfortable. Searching for a way to diffuse the tension, I stood up and said, "I've been in these jeans and this shirt all day. It's suffocating me. I'm going to change into something more comfortable. Feel free to make yourself at home." As I walked away, I could feel Aaron's gaze following me. I didn't dare look back, but the awareness of his eyes on me sent a shiver through me, equal parts thrilling and nerve-wracking. Upstairs, I slipped into a sleek, figure-hugging dress with spaghetti straps. The soft fabric and its gentle fit made me feel both elegant and daring. I took a moment to touch up my makeup and steady my nerves before heading back downstairs. As I entered the kitchen, I caught sight of Aaron standing near the living room door. His eyes, whether intentionally or not, were fixed on me, and for a fleeting moment, I hesitated at the threshold. My thoughts raced as I tried to gauge his intentions. "All right," I told myself silently. "This young man is clearly interested. It feels like hitting the jackpot. Let's see where this goes." With that inner pep talk, I decided to play it cool, pretending not to notice his lingering gaze. I stepped toward him with purpose. "Aaron," I began, my tone light and teasing, "are you single? Do you have a girlfriend, or do you spend your nights alone?" My voice carried a playful lilt, but inside, I could feel a growing spark, a fire fueled by his proximity and the unspoken connection building between us. As he met my question with a shy yet excited smile, I couldn't help but feel emboldened. "If you've finished setting up the coffee maker," I continued, "how about we make some coffee? We can sit and chat, and you can tell me more about yourself." I felt a slight tremor in my voice, but I pushed past it, stepping closer to him as I spoke. The warmth emanating from him was almost tangible, and it pulled me in like gravity. Aaron took a seat on a chair, shifting uncomfortably as if trying to find the right position. Meanwhile, I grabbed a chair and deliberately moved it close to his. Sliding into it, I was acutely aware of how my skirt rode up just a bit, only a few centimeters, but enough to catch his attention. His eyes flickered downward momentarily, before settling somewhere near mine, his focus both attentive and genuine. Trying to keep things lighthearted, I crossed my legs and rested one arm casually on the back of my chair. "Were you getting impatient, waiting for this coffee?" I teased, my tone playful, yet laced with something more. Despite my efforts to keep it breezy, the tension between us continued to simmer, growing stronger with every shared glance, every exchanged word. Aaron shifted slightly in his seat, clearly feeling the same weight of the moment, and I couldn't help but smile, feeling the unspoken intensity pull us closer together. Aaron, his cheeks slightly flushed, yet his gaze unwavering, asked me in a voice tinged with both surprise and admiration, "How old are you?" His tone betrayed a flicker of nervousness, as though he was hesitant to cross a line but couldn't resist his curiosity. Then, as if trying to soften the question, he added, "I thought you were 50. A sparkle danced in my eyes at his response. Did he really think I looked 50? The thought was oddly flattering and intriguing at the same time. A playful smile crept onto my lips as I leaned in ever so slightly. "Do you prefer 50-year-olds?" I teased, raising an eyebrow while studying him. Each word, each second of our exchange, seemed to amplify the tension between us. His reaction didn't disappoint. Surprise lit up his face as though he hadn't anticipated my teasing response. He seemed completely captivated by me, and that look in his eyes made my heart flutter. "No, that's not what I meant," he stammered, a little shyly, his voice carrying a mix of flattery and sincerity. You look so young and beautiful." His words echoed in my mind, and I felt a wave of warmth wash over me. His compliment, though genuine, stirred something deeper within me, a blend of excitement and uncertainty. This closeness we shared felt both thrilling and precarious, as if we were teetering on the edge of something life-changing. For a moment, silence enveloped us, thick with unspoken emotion. I took a deep breath, steadying myself before voicing the question that had been lingering in my mind. "Do you have a girlfriend?" I asked, my voice softer but laced with curiosity. "Are you alone? How do you spend your nights?" The questions hung in the air, heavy with anticipation. I wanted to know, but at the same time, I feared his answers. Aaron lowered his voice and met my gaze with an intensity that sent a shiver through me. "I'm alone," he said, the weight of his words carrying a certain sadness. It felt like a truth he carried reluctantly, a loneliness he hadn't chosen but endured nonetheless. We locked eyes, the moment stretching into something profound. It was as if the unspoken emotions between us solidified, forming a bond neither of us had expected. I could feel my feelings taking shape, growing stronger with each passing second. Something inside me shifted, and I knew I couldn't hold back any longer. "That's not how tonight is going to go," I said firmly, my voice steadier and more determined than before. My eyes locked onto his, my words imbued with a sense of finality. I turned slightly, gesturing subtly toward the bedroom, my voice dipping lower as I said, "Aaron, come." There was no hesitation in my stride as I walked toward the room, confident he would follow. Sure enough, I heard his footsteps behind me, his breathing quickening just slightly, betraying his nerves and anticipation. When we entered the bedroom, Aaron stopped near the door, his shoulders carrying a hint of tension. His expression, however, was focused, his eyes filled with a mixture of excitement and hesitation. Turning to face him, I caught the uncertainty in his stance. "Aaron, are you ready?" I asked, my tone calm yet reassuring. I stepped closer to him, offering a small, inviting smile. "Don't worry," I added with a light chuckle. "I've got experience, as you might have guessed. There's no need to be nervous." Reaching out, I placed my hand gently on his shoulder. The touch seemed to ease some of his tension, but at the same time, it heightened the electricity between us. His youthful energy was palpable, meeting the confidence and poise I had cultivated over the years. It was a heady combination, one that left us both breathless. Slowly, I slipped the straps of my dress off my shoulders, the fabric brushing against my skin as it slid to the floor. Aaron's eyes followed every movement, his gaze a mixture of awe, curiosity, and desire. Despite the storm of emotions inside me, I maintained a calm and collected exterior, stepping closer to him with deliberate grace. The silence between us was charged, as though it was speaking for us in a language only we understood. Lifting my hand, I let my fingertips graze his cheek, the lightest of touches. I paused, waiting for him to make his move. Aaron hesitated for a moment, his face a blend of excitement and determination, before finally leaning in. His hands found their place on my waist, gentle but steady, and then his lips met mine. The kiss was tender yet filled with the bravery of youth, carrying a hint of inexperience that only made it more endearing. His innocence had a charm that drew me in deeper, and I responded instinctively, letting the moment envelop us. When I pulled back, I did so slowly, savoring the connection before moving toward the bed. I let myself sink onto the bed, the coolness of the surface sending a shiver up my spine. The anticipation in the room was almost tangible now, amplifying every sensation. Looking over at Aaron, I saw him still standing near the door, uncertainty flickering across his face as he tried to decide what to do next. Aaron, come here, I said, my voice soft yet full of quiet command. I ran my fingers across the bed, pointing to the empty spot beside me, inviting him to join me. Lie down. There's nothing to be afraid of. Aaron hesitated for only a moment before taking a slow, deliberate step closer. He carefully lowered himself onto the bed beside me, his movements measured as though he was afraid to break the fragile tension in the room. The air around us felt heavier with each passing second, charged with a mix of anticipation and vulnerability. Neither of us spoke at first, the silence stretching into something almost tangible. Turning toward him, I placed my hand gently on his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath my palm. Have you ever thought about this moment? Imagined it? I asked softly, my voice barely above a whisper. Aaron's gaze never wavered, his eyes locked on mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. More than just imagined it, he admitted, his voice low and trembling slightly. But I never thought it could actually happen. In that instant, all the doubts, hesitations, and fears melted away. We weren't just sharing a physical connection, it was something much deeper, an emotional intertwining that neither of us had anticipated, but desperately needed. We didn't know where this moment would take us, but one thing was clear. The thrill, the spark I felt with Aaron, was something I'd been yearning for without even realizing it. Lying beside him, the excitement building inside me gave way to a newfound courage. I slowly sat up, moving to the edge of the bed, my gaze never leaving his. Standing, I positioned myself in front of him, leaning slightly toward the head of the bed. My eyes locked with his, capturing the mix of surprise, anticipation, and a hint of nervousness on his face. Aaron, I said, my voice firm yet tender, tonight, neither of us is alone. He swallowed hard, the sound barely audible in the charged stillness of the room. His silence spoke volumes, and his eyes reflected an understanding of the weight of my words. Though his hands gripped the edge of the bed tightly, his gaze had grown bolder, more certain. Slowly, I leaned toward him, my hands gently cradling his face. Let's just live this moment, I whispered, my breath brushing against his skin as I moved closer. Don't question it. Don't fear it. Just let it be. Aaron's breathing quickened, but he didn't pull back, not even for a second. His eyes seemed to be trying to memorize every detail, as though he wanted to etch this moment into his mind forever. With a brief hesitation, he lifted his hands to my waist, his touch both tentative and filled with an emerging confidence. The initial uncertainty in his movements gradually gave way to something more intense, an unspoken desire that matched my own. I could feel my own breathing growing shallow, the gravity of the moment settling deep within me. Aaron, I murmured, my voice barely audible as I brushed my fingertips across his face. This feeling, it's so much, and it's beautiful. Aaron didn't look away. His voice, trembling yet warm, broke the silence. I feel the same, he said softly. But isn't this all happening so fast? This feeling, it's so strong, so overwhelming. You can probably tell. I've never done anything like this before. A gentle smile curved my lips as I leaned in closer, placing a soft, reassuring kiss on his forehead. Aaron, I said, my tone steady and comforting. Sometimes, life is better when you don't overthink. Just let yourself feel the moment. Don't stop. Just let go. He paused, his expression thoughtful, before his hands slid upward from my waist. Slowly, he pulled me closer, and our breaths mingled as the space between us disappeared entirely. I could feel his nervous energy begin to shift, replaced by a quiet resolve as he surrendered to the moment. What followed felt like the culmination of everything we'd been holding back. Aaron, breathless and fully immersed, allowed himself to let go, just as I had told him. The connection we shared was electric, something that felt extraordinary and almost too perfect to describe. Afterward, as I lay beside him, I glanced over and saw a new expression on his face, a look of pure contentment. He seemed lighter, as though he had finally shed the tension and uncertainty that had weighed him down. The happiness radiating from him was infectious, and I couldn't help but smile, knowing we had both found something we hadn't realized we were searching for. Aaron's strong arms were wrapped securely around me, holding me close with a gentle but firm embrace. My head rested against his chest, where I could hear the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. The sound was soothing, a constant reassurance of his presence, yet it carried an exhilaration I couldn't quite explain. Without realizing it, my fingers began tracing soft, absent-minded patterns across his chest, my touch light and unhurried. Aaron took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling beneath my cheek. "Brittany," he began, his voice low and contemplative, "this feeling I have right now, it's something I've never experienced before. I've never felt this calm, this at peace." His words were raw and honest, tinged with a sense of wonder that made my heart flutter. I smiled softly, though I didn't lift my gaze, preferring to keep my head nestled against him. "Really?" I murmured, my voice gentle yet curious. "Yeah, really," he continued, his tone steady but laced with emotion. He slid one of his hands to the small of my back, his touch deliberate and comforting as he pulled me closer. "All my life, I feel like I've been chasing something, always searching for, I don't even know what. But I never thought I'd stop long enough to enjoy a moment like this. And now, being here with you, it makes everything feel worth it." His confession sent warmth coursing through me, an undeniable sense of connection that I hadn't felt in years. As I lay there, listening to the gentle rhythm of his breaths and the sincerity in his voice, I replied quietly, "Aaron, just being here with you makes me feel something I thought I'd lost. Something I haven't felt in so long. Special." Aaron's hand moved to my hair, his fingers combing through it with a tenderness that made my heart swell. A soft smile appeared on his lips, one that spoke of understanding and mutual comfort. "I guess," he said thoughtfully, "we've given each other exactly what we needed." Lifting my head slightly, I gazed up at him. The honesty etched across his face, mixed with the unmistakable relief in his expression, spoke volumes. There was no need for further explanation. Everything we felt was written in his eyes, and it mirrored what was in my own heart. "Then let's just leave it like this," I said softly, my voice filled with quiet resolution. "Let's soak up this moment." Aaron nodded slowly, a silent agreement passing between us. We didn't need to say anything more. Instead, we stayed there, wrapped up in each other, letting the warmth of the moment envelop us. The dim light in the room and the quiet stillness felt like they existed solely for us, creating a world where only we mattered. Resting my head back on his chest, I closed my eyes, allowing the peace of the moment to wash over me completely. That's when a thought began to creep into my mind, unbidden but undeniable. I started imagining what it would be like to ask him to stay, not just for the night, but for longer, perhaps forever. I pictured him here in this house, filling the quiet corners and lonely nights with his energy, his laughter, his presence. The idea of sharing my world with Aaron made everything seem brighter, more alive, as if his presence alone could transform my life into something fuller, more vibrant. Of course, I didn't know where this would lead us. Would we embark on thrilling new adventures together? Would we build a connection even deeper than what we felt now? There were so many questions, so many possibilities, and though I didn't have the answers, one thing was crystal clear. Our story wasn't ending here. This was only the beginning. So, if you've made it this far, it's clear that my story has resonated with you in some way. There's so much more I want to share, so many moments and thoughts I can't wait to put into words. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Hit that follow button and turn on your notifications so you'll be the first to know when the next chapter of this story unfolds. And don't forget to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what you've heard so far. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to connect with you. Let's keep this conversation going.